Hey everyone, this is Nick for PokerVIP.com. Coming at you today with episode 4 of my study with Snowie series. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different to the last few videos where I've pretty much just played Snowie, if we're being honest. And so far I've focused a lot on making my own range sort of fairly unexploitable. Maybe not against Snowie, but against your typical micro stakes players, I suppose, probably low stakes players as well. We've been trying to just come up with ranges where they can't really do much. Like, they may be able to exploit us in some specific spots, but in general, we're trying to find a strategy which is just difficult to play against. And I think we've been doing that really well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to say, how can we begin to look for spots where we can exploit our opponents? And Snowie is not particularly good for doing that, but for the sake of the video and for the sake of studying, I'm going to do it today. And the way I'm going to do it is the video might be a little bit stop-start, because we're going to get ourselves into situations and then we're going to kind of like, I'm going to go away and sort of like plug in villain's range, and then we're just going to look on sort of like a board section and say, okay, so how often is he actually going to be continuing here? This is something which I think is really valuable because it begins to paint you a really good picture of what kind of board textures are just good to bet on in which sort of situations. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm still going to do the same sort of stuff pre-flop using the ranges that we created. So yeah, so sorry if this video does come across as sort of like, it's not going to be really stop-start, it's just going to be, it's going to stop for like half a second, I suppose, then come up as something different. So you might need to be paying close attention, but we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. It should be quite a good one. So there's King 10 off in the cutoff. Yeah, I don't even have to look. It's an open. It's Ace 5 off, calling in the big blind. Is it cool? Okay, so this queen high board. I'm not going to go into every sort of situation. And in this kind of spot where I get led into, we kind of just have to go, this is a board he's probably going to be betting quite a lot on. What hands are the best hands to continue with? Because I think that's the correct strategy to go for here, rather than saying, oh, he's betting too much or anything like that. And I think the correct strategy would be to continue when we have hands which block, villains large, the biggest part of his value range. So King Jack, King 10, Queen 10. A lot of those also have backdoor equity, so they're the hands that we're going to be calling with, and we know from our range that we have enough of those that this can be just a fold. I wouldn't hate floating this, but I think that we have so many better hands to do it with, so we can just fold. Don't really worry about it too much. Apologies if I go through some hands really that we don't need to look at in too much detail and kind of blow them up a little bit. I think it's still important, simply because we want to embed that thought process. So even if it's a simple spot, I don't have a time limit on these hands, so I might as well say, okay, I can take as much time in the world. What should the correct thought process be here? Because you'll find a lot of spots where you make semi or completely autopilot decisions, you actually end up in kind of an odd situation. So yeah, so this I think we'll go for our first board. So I'm going to pause the video. We're going to have a look at what villain's calling range was likely to be, and if we can now exploit that on this flop. Okay, then, so I've kind of plugged in villain's likely calling range here. This is not Snowie's. I have not gone and seen what Snowie calls with. This is kind of like the range I would expect people to turn up with. I wouldn't necessarily advocate this as a calling range, but I mean like Queen Jack and King Jack suited, they're probably way better to free bet. But I'm gonna leave them in there because I think that these are kind of the hands we see in game a lot. Like Jack 10 suited, these kind of hands, like maybe some of the time we'll include them. Maybe we get rid of Jack 10 suited and we just do that. That's probably fine. So we go to post swap and we plug in the board here. So we've got Ace of Hearts, 4 of Diamonds, 5 of Diamonds. All we need to do now is kind of say how many nutted hands can he have. So obviously, or how many hands is he not folding? So obviously, all of his top pair hands are not going to fold. You know, that's pretty obvious. His ace 6 are not going to fold. The other hands which are unlikely to fold Queens, jacks, tens probably start to begin not loving life, to be honest. The queens and jacks can begin to call. So we can see here that the made hands, not including flush draws just for the moment, we're probably looking at already getting a decent amount of folds. You know, we're getting 66. We've got 2/3 of his range folding. If we now begin to say, okay, only diamonds, so only flush draws, we get to this. And I'm not sure if he would necessarily float with like the king of diamonds, but I'll put it in there anyway, just so that we can see. So if he does float with the king of diamonds, calls with his flush draws, and I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll actually include his backdoor flush draws as well. That also block, because the thing is these also block are the majority of our ace-x hands, like ace jack off. Yeah, so ace jack off, ace queen off, ace king, that kind of stuff. So, and suited, I suppose, obviously. So yeah, so we can begin to see that if he does have this range, and this range can be up for interpretation, he may have 4s and 5s. You know, if it's that, then I mean, like just for the sake of it, we can say, well, okay, you know, we'll just include 6s. If we include 6s and 7s, to sort of say he could have 4s and 5s, he'll have a few more combos, so it's going to be like 45% folds, 46% folds, whatever. But we can see that we likely just get a lot of folds here, if this is his range, obviously. And I've done this quite quickly, so you may disagree. We block the king of diamonds, which is quite good. So he can't have these two flush draw combos, and he can't actually have the king of diamond blockers. So this is a spot where we just get a ton of folds, and it's just a good spot for us. We block ace king, which he probably free bets, but some people will have in their range here. Block ace queen, and we block queens as well. So I think this is a very clear c-bet. I think it was anyway, but it's more just saying, well, looking at his range, can we begin bluffing with anything here? To be honest, we could probably get away with it, you know. And if it's against players who we know that they're calling this kind of range, then we definitely can. So we're just going to go for a bet, and we get a fold, which, you know, I kind of wanted to call so we could then look at what happens on turn. But anyway, let's continue. So pocket 9s here. We're going to open on a call. I think it's obviously just a call, and this is now going to be a very boring hand for us because we're just going to give up. I don't think there's any point in calling even if just one guy bets there. I think that it's just best to fold. We have a lot of Jack X and King X in our range, not to really worry about, you know, overfolding. And we're also going to be a situation where, like, if early position bets, then the pre-flop caller will defend against his bet enough that we don't really have to worry about it. And if the pre-flop caller bets, we don't have to worry about it too much because this guy's going to defend enough. So we're not forced into like, oh my god, we've got to defend to stop him being profitable. Let's now have a look at this ace-4 spot. So I'm going to pause again. Okay, so in this situation, I actually have a range for this. Big blind call versus small blind. This is the range I use. I will deviate slightly from this. I'll mix in some different free bet hands as I go along, but typically this is what I would use, and I think that this is fine. So we can begin to now say, okay, this is his range. Let's just do exactly the same as what we just did. So we go, you know, to post swap and begin to say, if this is someone's calling range, what do we do? If there's any hands in here which you disagree with, definitely comment and let us know. I'd be very interested to see what different people's opinions are. I think the way that I structured this was very simply, if we get ace king off in here, it kind of sucks, like, to be honest. And free betting ace 10 suited where we can just call is kind of So yeah, I would be happy to call this range. It's working for me so far. So we'll just go through the same sort of what we just did. So we're going to look for his hands that are just not folding. So you know, let's start off with sets because they're not going to fold. And we'll include in these top pair and over pairs as well. So straight away we can see that on this board we've actually got a few more combos here already that are quite strong and are going to call. If we then go on to sort of like the next sort of batch of hands which we're expecting to call, 9s and 10s probably, 8s is beginning to have a hard time but it's probably okay. So we'll put those in. So we can now see again, like, we're getting enough folds here, but it's not going to be too difficult before it gets, you know, a little bit closer. 7-6 suited, I think, is gonna continue. And then, of course, we also now need all of his club combos. Okay. Now we can begin to say, well, yeah, what are these slightly weaker hands that are definitely going to begin floating? So his better backdoor hearts, I think are easy calls. Oh, we need to change this. Sorry, that's going to screw things up otherwise. Whoops. Okay, so yeah, so all of his better, and the things as well, when he has a backdoor flush draw here, he likely has a backdoor straight draw as well, or a gut shot, you know. So it's like everything that's got a backdoor flush draw is probably going to continue, and this is a board which he should begin to be, you know, check raising maybe fives and jacks, and then some of his backdoor flush draws, and maybe some of his nut flush draws, you know, potentially. But we can see he's going to continue with these, and then I'm also going to say whenever he has a backdoor, whenever he has a nut flush draw blocker, we're going to put it in, and when he has, that was an accident. Okay, yeah. Whenever he has backdoor flush draw, in fact, any time he has a club here, because I think he's going to float or continue a certain amount of the time with these. And maybe he also does with like half of his king-queen combos because they block Jack-X. That'd be a good hand to... In fact, we'll do that. Sorry, this is a little bit... Yeah, spur of the moment. So we can begin to see that this is kind of like now the range that we're expecting him to continue with in some way, whether it's check raising or just check calling. And we can begin to see that 2/3 of his range are now continuing. And 1/3 of his range is folding. So simply put here, we can begin to just go ahead and bet, you know, half pot here, and it's likely to be profitable. And against players at, you know, micro stakes, they're not going to be floating all of these hands, and so on. And the other thing as well is we do have, you know, more better combos than him. We have aces and kings and queens to better, you know, just having queens. We have I think we have a few more jack combos as well here. So we're in a situation. Actually, no, we don't. We have the same jack combos, thinking about it. But we're in a situation where we're kind of a little bit more nutted than him. It's quite an equally distributed board in terms of like, he has pretty much all the sets other than fours, but we don't always have fours in this situation. He's just missing out on a few over pairs and maybe a few nut flush draws that we would have. But other than that, we're pretty equal. And we do have quite a few hands which kind of like, they've just missed. You know, if we look at our early position range, you know, it's actually relatively similar. But you can see like ace 9 of diamonds has not done particularly well here. Ace 10 of diamonds has not done particularly well here. 9 8 of diamonds has not done particularly well here. So there's quite a few hands that we have which are not doing amazingly well. It's not like you know, we have a big potential bluffing range, but it is that a lot of his range kind of hits this board in some way. So we just have to be a little bit careful not to begin going overly bluffy on this board texture. But saying that, he is folding a tiny amount over 1/3 of the time. So then we kind of begin saying, okay, so what are our best bluffing hands? And obviously the hands that block the hands he's continuing with. So this ace blocks ace jack. It blocks... that's about it. The 4, I mean, if he does have pocket 4s, we block pocket 4s, which is kind of nice, and I think people will do. If I had the ace of clubs, you know, I think the only ace of clubs I'm gonna have, well, I'll have like these, I guess, ace king, ace queen, ace jack. But when we have, if it was a slightly different situation, you know, mid position or cut off, and we had the ace of clubs, I'd be very keen to bet because we're blocking all of these that are going to continue. As it is, in this exact spot, I think that we're probably, in this situation, just okay. It's probably very close here. I don't mind betting. We block pocket 4s, which is nice. We block ace jack, which is nice. If we get a check raise, I don't, like in game, I don't see many people check raising a jack here. So I don't think we get too many check raises. Like he can have jacks and 5s, obviously. But I'm not expecting loads of check raises. We block ace jack. So I'm happy to go ahead and bet. I don't hate checking either. I think betting might be very slightly better. Because it's a sort of spot where this is again sort of like now getting into more my range as well, which I think is important. It's a spot where a lot of my range is it's kind of hit this board quite well, and then you've got these kind of hands which haven't hit it quite as well, but are still kind of good enough to bet. So we've got to sort of then sort of like weight it up and say, weight it up. That's not even a good way of putting it. You got to sort of you got to think of it like this. Like, we've got a big part of our range which is betting for value here, a big part of our range which is semi-bluffing here. What kind of sizing do we want to do? And I think in these sort of situations, we probably want to make all of our bets quite big. Not huge, but I think, $5 within our entire range here would be absolutely fine. I don't like the idea of having a range where I'm betting like 4s if I have them sometimes, 5s really big, along with some of my weaker hands. I don't love that because we've got a lot of semi-bluffs and their normal betting range is a little bit capped, but I don't hate it either. But I think I prefer just betting fairly big with these. This could be a check. I think it's quite close. I don't hate betting at all. And we do get check raise, and I think a large part of the reason for that is that Snowy does this with more Jack X combos than they do in game. So I'm not too worried about folding this. We do find that we face a lot less check raises than we would do against Snowy. So I might have taken quite a long time in that hand. Apologies if you got a little bit bored. Let me just check this. It's not cool. Should be quite an easy one, really. So the ace-6, I think, is, well, it's an obvious open, so that's fine. Let's bring this back over here so we can actually see what we're doing a little bit. Good. Okay. King 10, we're going to fold. And the cool thing, with doing this is it's about sort of like beginning to realize what like I said earlier, what we've done so far is we've looked at our range and how it's doing. We haven't spent as much time looking at what our opponent can have, and I think that picking one or the other is silly. You've got to mix the two, and I think that doing this is a really good way of doing that. I will have a look at this actually because it's quite interesting. We've been free bet and now it's a fantastic ball for us. So I'm going to look at this one. So I'll just pause this. Okay, then. So we've got villains range here. This is a range I use. It's fairly polarized, which it should be in the big blind really. You can construct this in any way you kind of want to, in a sense. But this is the range we have. So we're gonna look at this. So again, we put the board in before we faff around with anything else. Cool. So it's slightly more difficult doing it this way around because he's bet. We can begin to say, okay, what hands is he going to be now check not folding with? And I'm going to first of all do the hands that beat us. So these will at least some of the time. I might take out aces and kings and just leave queens, jacks, tens. An 8 high board was particularly good for my free betting range, I realized when I made these. And now the hands that are going to check call, which we beat. Let's put this in here. And he will bet some of these, of course. But assuming that he's going to check call some of the time. Sorry. He's got like that. We're not doing great is kind of the point that I need to make here. This is a good board for us. I mean, it's probably better for us than it is for him because he's going to have a lot of these sort of like ace king off, ace queen suited, ace king suited, other broadways. I mean, we've got queen 9 and jack 9. He's going to have some other offsuit broadways, and that's great. But unfortunately, a lot of people here, they have 8-9, they think automatically perfect, we can bet. We've got top pair, a gut shot, and we're ahead of a lot of his range. Like, that's great and all, but he does have a lot of these 10s, jacks, queens, which he's check calling. Some better 8s potentially that he's check calling. Like, it's quite close in the fact that we can bet and get him to fold all of these hands, but there's no guarantee that he doesn't just check all of his aces and kings. So it's kind of a, when we bet and get called here, I'm really not loving the situation. It's like he has an overpair, and like it's okay. We do have 9 outs against him at the moment if he has like 10s or jacks or queens. So we've got okay equity, and we can check the turn and realize that equity. So it's not going to be a bad bet. But I think a lot of people here begin to say, "Oh, this is great. It's a massive plus EV spot for me," and it's like, hey, it's not bad. And betting is probably going to be best here. And we don't have to bet that big because we're going to get a decent amount of folds from his sort of bluffs that have decided that he's not going to get enough folds here. And when he does call us, we still have a decent amount of equity, and we can get a hand like ace king off to fold. and I'm not folding to a check raise. So I'm fine with betting here. I'm not beginning to bet to get stacks in. So I'm just going to go for like a 7. I'm going to go for half pot here. I'm not surprised if he folds, to be honest. He's going to fold a fair amount of the time. So it's a plus EV bet. And I'm not saying for one moment like, oh, you know, it's going to be a horrible bet or anything like that. I think I might have started out on that tone by accident. It's more of a case of realizing that the way our villain's range is constructed means that we're not like when we get called, it's not, hey, it's fuck, we've not got the hands we want, really. Apologies for my language. So it's important to realize that, and I think that's what separates good players from particularly good players. Not getting, you know, into spot like, oh, I have top pair in this sort of spot, and you know, villain's gonna do it, because when he check calls, he's probably gonna have a better hand than us a lot of the time. I'm just going to double check this is a call and not a free bet with queen 10 suited, which it is. And this ace 6 off, I think, is going to be just a fold. But I could be wrong. No. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail now on the next few hands unless they're really interesting. This is a board texture which it's kind of like it doesn't really hit either of us massively. The fact that he has overpairs makes it good for him to bet. The fact that I have 9s, 2s, and 4s, and so does him, mean that like the equity distribution once he checks probably isn't. It's probably quite close because he probably bets a lot of his overpairs, some of his sets as well. 2s and 4s I think should be a bet. So when he checks, I think I have possibly slightly more. Well, I probably do. Yeah, when he checks, I think I have more set values, of set combos in my range than he does. Assuming that I call 2s and 4s. He's going to check call some pocket pairs. We block 9, 10. We block pocket 10s. We block pocket queens. We can't check it back. So I think this is just a clear bet. And we can begin, you know, barreling in. And we have good barrel cards. We get a check call, which isn't a surprise. The 4 is not a nice card for us. It doesn't really change much. Like he might check call pocket 4s, but I don't think so. And if he does, like, I don't think people do in real life. So we're going to discount those. So I think I can really be the only one with a boat, unless he has pocket 9s, which some people also play here. I think that's fine. He can have some overpairs that he's check calling, but not that many. So when he check calls, I expect him to have a lot of people have a capped range here. And it's important now to begin sort of thinking about what range do we begin betting here for value, and how do we construct our sizes? Because we can't just go, oh, I'm going to bet and then make a huge bet on the river, because what are you going to do that with? The 1 combo of 4s and then 6 combos of boats. I mean, like, you just don't have enough combos to begin going, oh, I'm going to make huge bluffs everywhere. So you have to begin saying, okay, what am I going to do with pocket 10s here? What am I going to do with ace 9 here on the river? If you have pocket jacks, what are you going to do with pocket jacks on the river? And I think they're all fine to triple barrel, certainly at micro stakes. So therefore we can say, well, we block 10s, we block queens, so this is probably one of our better bluffing hands. So we probably therefore want to say, we don't want to get over bluffy. I think that's a problem I have occasionally. But we probably want to say, you know, what do we do? We're probably now going to say, let's go for a triple barrel. The 7 of hearts is not a particularly great card. He can have pocket 7s. We can't. It's unlikely he has a flush, to be honest. We have a lot more flush combos than him. We have more boat combos than him. So we've now got to sort of sum up, and we've got to say, well, okay, we probably have more nutted combos than he does. His range is far more capped than ours is. All of those pocket pairs, like 10s and jacks, now are probably not going to bet. And if they do, they're going to bet quite small. So we might want a bluffing range of quite small. We also probably now want to say, okay, when we have a boat, we're going to bet big. And when we have a flush, we're going to have to bet big. And simply put, what hands we put in our bluffing range. Is 10 queen a good one? We block 10 9 and queen 9, so probably it is. How big do we bet with a boat and a flush? This amount I think is fine. So if we want to take this bluffing line, we could also give up on the turn. I wouldn't hate that, but take a bluffing line like this, and he calls, and he does have 2s. You know, I don't think, and this is one thing you have to be really careful with Snowy, is that doesn't mean we played the hand bad. It means that in the games we're playing, in the games that you'll play, he probably bets 2s a lot. So, you know, just be aware of that. Pocket aces here. We'll go into this a little bit. So I'll pause and get up the pocket aces hand. Okay, so here we have our big blind versus that was mid position. Actually, let's expand on that a little bit. Okay, that's changed it a little bit. I'll pause again to get it up properly. Okay, sorry about that. So this is a calling range that we can have. Again, you can have different, but whatever. And we're just gonna do the same again. Anything that he's gonna call. I'm not going to look at what hands we beat and what we don't this time around because I want to really get an idea of if we can bluff. I think that's an important aspect of it. So obviously when he has top pair, we're going to expect him not to fold. When he has second pair, I don't think he's going to fold a huge amount. So we'll get those in as well. And when he has a set, I think that's all pretty standard. Now we're going to go into like the draws. Okay, because I think does tens fold? We'll go into the draws for now because I think that most of his pocket pairs will fold. So king 10, 10 9 suited. Obviously, both gonna call. Now we'll put in all of his flush draws, and I've not done the board again, which is gonna be annoying. We'll change that. Okay. So what have I done wrong here? Okay, so group one are hands that he's just not going to fold because he's got to hand them top pair or second pair in this case as well. Group two are his draws. I'm going to make group three his backdoor flush draws. Maybe just he's sort of like best backdoor flush draws, so he's not flush draws, and he's not going to float with these all of the time. Need to change that as well. So maybe something like this. And we'll make all of that like that. Okay. So now we're kind of like looking at this range and we're saying how often he's going to fold. And to be honest, surprisingly to me, we should expect quite a lot of folds here. This was a board where I was expecting to see quite a lot of calls. But it appears, and this is great because I'm improving my game. This is a way you can improve. This is a board in this situation where villain has too many pocket pairs, and it's just going to mean he folds quite a lot. In terms of nutted hands, I mean, he does have Queen Jack suited, and he does have some nut flush draws and some very strong combo draws. Not that they're nutted, but so he can very comfortably construct a good check raising range. But when he check calls, he's going to have a lot of top pair weak kicker or top pair just top pair actually. He's got no top pair weak kickers really. And some Jack X and some flush draws. So we can be pretty comfortable as long as the board runs out fairly dry to triple barrel quite big when we block ace queen and king queen. If we have ace king here, it's a perfect situation to triple barrel huge because we're going to get a lot of folds. That being said, we get so many folds on the flop we don't really need to worry about it too much. So it turns out that this specific boards, assuming that I've done all the combos right, which I'm 100% sure I have. Assuming that we can bet everything if we want to. We can auto profit with pocket fives. We can just bet, which is fine. With a hand like pocket aces, if we do want to have a checking range, should aces fall into it? Probably not. This is a spot where I used to think, ace is probably fine to check here. It's probably not because he can have, flush draws, queen X, jack X, which we're just missing value from. So contrary to what I was initially thinking when this board first came down, and I'm hoping some of you would have thought this as well, this is a spot where actually we just want to go ahead and bet aces. Bet our entire range, about, I'm not sure how actually this pot has got so big. I'm not sure what I've done here. Oh, I see. So I've accidentally just clicked it back. Okay, so I've screwed this up. Assuming that he's a big blind, we'll do it that way. We don't need to worry too much about the result. But yeah, that's screwed up a little bit. But we'll just go with as if he's the big blind, and he folds. Because we've got a nice hand here, I'll play the king jack, and that's then going to be it, unless I get dealt another good hand. Okay. Oh, it's not in my opening range. Fine. Cool. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. I think that was we'll let Snowy play out, and we'll see how Snowy does against Snowy. Oh wow, that was a fun hand. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think that that's something that you can, like, I've just done that in half an hour, and I've improved my thought process a huge amount. And okay, it's not in a very difficult situation. So, if you've read some of the Mental Game of Poker 2, you will know that in these situations they're not very difficult. So the repetitions don't really count for much. But you can do, like, I've just done like what, 4 board textures there, 4 board textures in half an hour. It's a little bit longer for me because I pause a little bit in about 40 minutes. You can do a board texture in 10 minutes, and you can very quickly begin to say, oh, this board texture is good for betting because of this, this, and this. You learn that. You do that, for half an hour before your session every single day if you have that kind of time, which, to be honest, most people should do. Even if you're working 9 till 5, you can get home, you can put in half hour and then play for an hour. It's no difference. In a month, you're probably going to be in a situation where you begin to instinctively know that a certain board texture is going to be fantastic to bet on, or not good to bet on, or is not a board which you can auto profit on, but it is a board that because of the way your range is constructed, you are so much stronger than villain. Maybe you have way more sets. If it's an ace king 4 board, for example, you know that you have all the sets, and they sometimes have pocket 4s. And it's like, well, you can begin betting, you can begin bluffing a little bit more because you just have way more nutty combos than them. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. It doesn't take very long. You can go into a lot more detail than I did today. It's a shame that we didn't get a call at any sort of point, other than when Snowie had a set of 2s and then turned a boat. Because I think that the flop's important. Quite difficult to play the flop because you have so many combos. When you then get to the turn, it's important to then say, okay, this is the range he now has. And you then get into a situation where it's like, if I've bluffed everything, you then need to be really careful on the turn that you don't say, oh, well, I'm just going to bluff again. Because in a lot of situations, you get a lot of players, definitely it's sort of like the topper end, the higher end of the micro stakes, 25 and L in particular, actually, that you see this very common double barrel bluff with kind of just trashy hands and giving up on the river, when really that second bet wasn't profitable because your opponent folded in this situation. They folded a lot on the flop. Okay, he's going to fold a lot on the turn and river, but you get into situations where they fold a lot on the flop, and then when they continue on the turn, they have top pair plus maybe a few second pair combos, and you're just not going to get many folds. So you then just have to say, okay, I'm going to bet when I block his best bluff catchers, and I'm going to bet my best hands. Your other bluffs already may profit on the flop. You don't have to worry about those, and take it from there. So hopefully we can look at that next time. We'll just try and get into a load of turn spots, and I might even just pause the video until I get into situations where we get to the turn. That might be something we can do. This has been Nick for PokerVIP.com. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. I hope you go off and do this, which most of you probably won't. So I really encourage anybody who wants to go and do it, just to go and do it, because you're going to have a massive edge over everybody else. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.